Hi everyone, welcome to the Write, Learn and Earn channel. And if you have got a craft or you've got a special skill that you are wanting to translate into books, then this is the show for you to watch. With me, I've got Melanie, who is a wonderful entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur, and she has got a lot of wonderful experience in terms of building a business and moving into the publishing world. And so without any further ado, I'd like to say welcome, Melanie. Thank you so much for being on the channel, and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background as a business person, and what made you decide to get into the publishing world.
So firstly, thank you so much, Kim, for allowing me this opportunity to be on your channel. I appreciate it so very much. Um, so I think I was probably destined to be a writer my whole life. When I was a little girl, my mom was actually quite concerned about me because I didn't start reading as early as she'd hoped I would. My brothers and sisters had started a little bit earlier than I had. And it wasn't until I found something that I was really interested in reading that it then ignited my absolute desire to read more. When I was a teenager, I always had my nose in a book. I consumed fantasy and science fiction. I absolutely love swashbuckling science fiction. And the very first books actually that captured my attention were the Narnia Chronicles. I found them in a hard cover, all 7 books together when I was a girl of about 12 years old. And I remember going to my mom very excited and saying, please, could I buy these? And it was quite interesting because she consumes murder mysteries and things like that. So she felt that my choice of topic, what I enjoyed reading, was kind of far-fetched and out there. And she was kind of bemused, but she bought me these books anyway because it was the first thing I'd shown an interest in reading. And then from there on out, it was absolutely amazing. I must say that my mom was incredible in that way because as a teenager, she would take me to the stores every month and buy me new books. And I realize now as an adult what an extreme place of privilege that is to come from. So I have a long and very close relationship with books. And if you'd asked me when I was a child what I wanted to be when I grew up, one of the answers I would have given you was that I wanted to be a writer. So it was inevitable that I would write when I was older. And then when I was in my 20s and it was time to choose what to do for a career, I sort of gave up in despair about ever writing about anything because I kind of had this feeling, well, what value could I add? What do I know? Um, I'm so naive. I don't know anything about anything. What can I write that people would enjoy? I had no life experience. So I kind of shelved the idea for a very long time. And then I kind of fell into making garments to sell at markets. And essentially, what I would do is I would either buy white blanks, white t-shirts that were imports from China, or I would have garments CMT'd made at a cut, make, and trim factory. And I made dresses and sorts of beautiful things that I would then sell at markets. And after about a decade of that, I realized that I now had this really unique knowledge, especially for somebody in South Africa, about how fabrics can be dyed and colored. And it was there that my kind of dream was rekindled of becoming an author again, because now I felt I had something that I was an expert in that I had to write about. Um, so around 2001, I started writing the book. I started actually putting it together, but it took me until 2010 to finally get it published. And that whole journey of finding a publisher was quite a long road. And I'd actually given up by the time it happened. So it was quite surreal when I then, a couple of years later, was standing there holding my book in my hands. And because it was something that I'd given up on along the way. And it was not what I imagined it would be. I actually pictured myself writing books more like what you write, Kim. than the kind of books that I've put together. And then, of course, the second book was really just because I really hated the idea of being a one-hit wonder. So then I was determined to do a second craft book. My interest in book writing has kind of shifted now because I'm way more into digital content. And also the photographer who worked on my two books with me passed away a couple of years ago from kidney failure. And he was so pivotal in creating the right books that looked the right way for what I did. Um, that I don't really feel the same about making books again now that he's gone. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because of the photographer relationship. I've had the privilege of knowing quite a few photographers over the years, but since I started writing, I developed a relationship with a gentleman by the name of Hashnadu, and I've actually interviewed him on this channel beforehand. And now, I could never imagine working with anyone else. And I know that there's some incredibly brilliant photographers out there, but I've got this terrible habit of blinking a huge amount. So I think people say it's because I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was younger, and people who do have epilepsy do tend to blink a lot. And he just makes me feel okay. He finds the shots. He does like rapid photography, so it means he takes lots and lots and lots of photographs, and then he finds the perfect one where I'm not blinking, where my eyes are open, and it's just a comfortable kind of relationship. So I don't feel like forced or post. So I can perfectly understand your reluctance to work with someone else once you've gone through that journey together of creating something.
Mm,
So
mm,
a lot of the authors that have been on this channel are people who have self-published. And
mm,
I went into self publishing because I was really quite scared of the whole submitting my books to a publisher. And you say that you spent a lot of time working on it and then you kind of given up. What was your experience of going the publishing route? How did you find someone? What was that sort of magical moment when you actually got the right publisher? And what was the journey for you?
So when I first started putting the book together in 2001, I really thought about it very hard. What did the book need to look like? And I created a structure for the book that I thought would work. And then I went to various bookstores. And you must remember this in 2001, the book business looked different to what it does today. There weren't so many digital options back then. The self-publishing was a very new kind of concept back then. And I went into bookstores and I would pick up books off the shelf that looked and felt the way I wanted mine to be. And every single time I did that, I came away with a Metz Press book. Every time. So Metz felt like a natural fit for me from the start. And my strategy back then was a simple one. I used to spray and pray. So I would just send bulk emails to every publisher's address that I could find and ask them to respond. And of course, none of them do to any of those kinds of bulk emails. And I did that for a very, very long time, where I would just find any email address that I could find and just be cheeky and try to email people. And now that I know my publisher a little bit better, I know that she doesn't work that way. She really prefers to work by word of mouth with people who come with a recommendation and with some sort of a network of their own already to bring to the party. And so I did the spray and pray thing for a decade. And then it's actually interesting that you asked me about the story of how I'm kind of got connected with Vilsia in the end. And it was It was a facetious act of courage that started the whole thing in motion. I was doing research because I'm always researching. I'm always researching forward, and like, research is one of the things I do all the time. Where should my business be going next? What is new? What do I need to learn? And I'd seen that there was this craft show happening. It was known as Keen on Crafts. And essentially, what they would do is they would push a bunch of craft students through a craft event where they could do, I think it was something ridiculous, like 4 crafts a day for 4 days, or 3 crafts a day for 4 days, or something like that. So by the end of the show, if you were a teacher, you knew you'd said it, but you didn't know who you'd said it to, because you'd repeated the same class 12 times in 4 days. It was hectic. And by the end of the show, some of the students were also falling asleep because they were just baked from, like, it's too much input. You can't absorb that much. And it is a wonderful event. It was a wonderful event. It no longer happens, but it was an amazing event because you could just craft and eat lovely things all day. So I got in touch with the organizers and I said to them, you're selling this event as a, like, you're forward thinking and this is cutting edge and this is, the place where everybody wants to be, but I'm not there as a teacher. What's up? And they immediately responded by saying to me, okay, what will it take to get you down here? And please, would you come to our Cape Town event to teach? And when I went down to teach at the first event, I had a spare class where I didn't have any bookings, so I had nothing to do. And we were invited as teachers to go and sit in on different classes. And I had taken an assistant down with me, a lady who had helped me in my workshop and in my business in Joburg, and she'd never been on an aeroplane before. So I took her down with me to assist at the show. And I thought that she would enjoy doing embroidery. So I signed up for one of the embroidery workshops with a lady called Francie Knutzer. And Francie and I got along really well. And I had a lot of fun and I enjoyed her workshop a lot. And at the end of the workshop, she said to me, you're so knowledgeable about your topic. Have you ever thought about writing a book? And I said to her, I've got a book. I've finished writing it. It's just waiting for a publisher. And, I would really love to publish with someone, and I'm ready. I'm so ready. It's a done thing. I just need to find someone. So she said to me, well, look, I have a publisher. I'd looked at her book and it was a Metz Press book and it was gorgeous. And I said to Francie, well, here's my information. Please, could she pass it on? And then I heard nothing. I got her information, Vilsia's information from her, and I started spamming Vilsia with my stuff, and I heard nothing. I heard nothing. And then Keen on Crafts happened again 6 months later in Pretoria. And I was standing there, and I still get goosebumps when I think about it. This blonde lady walked up to me and she extended her hand to me, and she said to me, hello, my name is Vilsia Metz. I'm a publisher. Would you like to work on a book with me? And that was where it began. That was when it was just absolutely magical. The kind of layout that I developed for the book was the same that she used for all of her authors. The only thing that I realized then at that point was that I had spent quite a lot of time in personal development. I'd done a lot of coaching and I'd been in a lot of processes where what had actually happened is that the way I speak and my framing for the way I write has shifted quite radically. So that when I then went and looked at this manuscript that I'd created in 2001, 2002, I absolutely hated it. I was like, oh no, God, I'm going to throw that away. I can keep the projects, but the actual words have to go. And I rewrote it from scratch in a very, very short time. Then once I had the go ahead to go on with the book. So that was how I ended up working with a publisher and not self-publishing. And I was super thankful. I'd just like to go back to the photographer one more time. The reason that Ivan Nordia was so well suited to working with me is because he 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 kind of was a photographer who lived with a foot in two camps. And in the one camp, he did all the photographs for all of the Mets press books. So he understood crafts and books really, really well. Then on the other side, he also took photographs of every single essay Fashion Week collection since its inception. So he had a particular understanding of how to make garments look on the catwalk. And it was that particular magic that he brought to my books. And it was just coincidental that Ivan was also Vilsia's dedicated photographer. So it all just like pulled together in the most magical way. And the books became way more beautiful than I could ever have achieved on my own.
That's wonderful. Now, when you're dealing with a traditional publisher, I know that things have changed significantly. But what is the process that you go in from the book being accepted to to actually getting it out on the shelves of the bookstores?
So it turns out that different publishers work in different ways. So you actually have to find out from your own publisher. So for example, I've heard from other authors that if you want to publish with, I think LARP or Strike or one of those, you actually have to come with a finished manuscript and all of your own pictures, all complete. Vilsia Metz works in a different way. She likes to work with her own photographer so that she can get the look and feel of the book right. She's very particular about quality. And in order to get that quality right, she makes sure that the photographs to begin with are top quality, and then it's much easier to add beautiful quality pictures on top of print quality to then end up with a beautiful finished product. So I think that's part of her success. So with Vilsia, the first book we wrote, I submitted a manuscript. Then we went through to photography. And then after the photographs were done, we had to almost do another edit where we now make the words match the pictures again. Because sometimes pictures are what they are. They become what they are in the process. It's quite tricky because also for the actual step-by-steps of the book, every single project that you see in my books, now both of my books have got 50 projects in. Now every single step-by-step picture in that project required a separate sample for me to make, so that when we went in to take the photographs, I didn't waste Ivan's time. So I might have one project in the book, but I would have had to produce anywhere between 3 and 6 samples to get to those step-by-step pictures that we needed in an effective and time respectful way, if I can put it that way. So then when we got to the second book, and Vilsia had seen that I was able to deliver and trusted the way I wrote and all of that, I said to her, let's do it the other way. Let's take all of the pictures. We do the planning, we take all of the pictures, and then I weave the words around the pictures, which is much, much easier to do. So as a craft writer, when you've got step-by-step pictures, it's very often much easier to do it that way, to weave words around pictures than to try to get pictures to match words.
That's quite interesting. So, obviously, as a fantasy writer, I write the book and then I do the illustrations afterwards. But in your
Yes.
case, you do it the other way around.
Yes. Because we're trying to get salient information across to the student that they need to be able to copy so that they can replicate what they're seeing in the book. So it's actually quite an interesting position for me to be in from a copyright perspective, because I'm inviting my students to copy things I've made, and for me as a teacher, if I'm doing my job right, they're able to copy exactly what my sample, if I have conveyed the information clearly.
Excellent. So it's far more of a teaching process than just the craft. So I had
Yes.
almost imagined, well, you're going to open it and it's just going to be full of beautiful pictures, but you are taking a student from one place to another place, and that journey is through the photographs and the words that you are using. So
Yes.
I see that you've got a little bit of a social entrepreneurship side to this. Just explain a little bit more about that. I actually had listened to one of the interviews that you had beforehand, where you have very much of a transformational approach, so that you can empower people. Just explain, if people are interested in getting involved in that, what is the process? What is it that you do?
So when I was 23 years old, I decided for the first time that I was going to be self-employed. And it took one decision, one moment in time where I changed my mind and decided this is the course I'll commit to. And for me, that was quite magical and empowering. And in a country where we have so much unemployment, I feel that that insight is actually quite valuable and powerful. Because, in a world where there just aren't enough jobs to go around, if more people could just make that small shift in mindset, I think that we'd be in a very different place. Being an entrepreneur, being a startup, and not even an entrepreneur, being self-employed, just making enough money to pay your bills, okay, is a very difficult thing. It's a tough thing. And in my mind, I believe that being unemployed is even tougher. So I just feel that because I had this chance, because I had this discovery when I was young, I want to share that with other people. And because I found like easy ways of making money, and it's not, there's no easy money in the world, but there are quick ways of getting to cash. So, for example, it's magical for me that I can buy a Chinese import, a white T-shirt, for a relatively cheap price, add my local added value on, put my color, my flavor on, and sell it for a markup at a local market. And I can go from being unemployed to being self-employed in 1 week, because a flea market sales cycle is 1 week. Where can you start a business that easily? You know, it's just such a direct route to money. And if more people can just begin to start thinking that way. So I do a lot of work into the social entrepreneurship space. I encourage entrepreneurs to start their own things. And uh, everything I teach is kind of geared towards that kind of thing. I've always, throughout my career, on one hand, done some work for money and some work for people who actually can't afford to pay, who are the ones who really can benefit from what I teach the most. And really, all I do is invite people to step into their courage and to try.
I love that concept. For the past almost 2 years and a little bit more, but more formally for the past 2 years, I've been part of the Uncovering Greatness team, and they're very strong on entrepreneurship, and they offer a lot of free programs as well. And the other day, they were saying something which was so true. They said, poverty is easy, but
Mm.
it's so hard. And what they mean is the decision to be poor is probably one of the easiest decisions you're going to make, because all you need to do is sit and do nothing. But having to go through the experience of being poor is the hardest thing, because when you don't have food to feed your family, and you don't have money for a place of shelter, whatever, that is incredibly hard. And then he said, and on the flip side, wealth is incredibly hard to get, but it's so easy when you are in that space to live. And I thought that's an incredibly empowering thought process to have. I've got a little WhatsApp group that I run on, and I send every single day. I send job vacancies out to my group, and since the pandemic started, that group has grown phenomenally. I mean, I've got over I've got about 120 people on that group. And every week I have more people saying to me, please, can you add my sister-in-law, my friend, or my customer because they've lost their job. And I don't broadcast this to the group because I don't want them to focus on this. But I am very aware that I am one of approximately 80 people that are running groups like this. And there's only ever 150 jobs that come up on that group. So if you take my 100 people and you multiply it by the 800, and they're all vying for those 150 jobs.
Wow.
You have to recognize that entrepreneurship, even though it is not easy. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. And people think, oh, you've got a business, everything is wonderful, you're full of cash flow and whatever. No, there's days where you think, oh my word, how am I going to put petrol in the car? However, from a mindset perspective, I am not trapped 100% by the economy. Even if the economy does go down, even if I lose my business, the mindset that I have is that, okay, I've got the skills to run a business. Maybe there's a different kind of business that I can run, that I can earn money in. And that's one of the reasons that I decided to be an author, is because I said, if I'm working, and you've got this experience because you had this, it affected your health. If my experience of running a business is quote, 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 get the sale, work until 3 o'clock in the morning, then the next day I have to start all over again. By the end of that time space, my relationships are going to be shot. I inherited, I earned this, I call it the author's Alice band. I earned this author's Alice band when I started writing, because I was doing my own illustrations and I was doing 4 a night until I got like the kind of feel that I was looking for. So it was hard. However, I know that when I've got my book catalog fully in place and the royalties are coming, and people think publishing a book is a lotto, get a publisher or self-publish and all of a sudden you're rich. No, it's a business. You've got to work it. You've got to be there. You've got to be in the hours. But I know the end result is when I've got royalties and I want to take a holiday with my family, I can. I don't have to come back and say, oh my word, now I've got to start all over again, because where's the income going to come from? So as an entrepreneur, if you're choosing a model that can help you, it can make a significant difference to your family and to your life. And so I really admire people like you that are taking it beyond just your experience, but taking it to other people to teach them.
Thank you, Kim. I've never had the desire to hold it to myself. There's too much of it. It comes out too fast. I have to share it with other people. And also it's just there's a need. That's where the need is in the market. So that's where I go with it. And very, very often it's just about an act of courage. And also I think people are not courageous enough to engineer the day they want. So very often we'll create a business, but without thinking through, okay, so what sort of a day is this going to create for me? And how can I make it more gentle on myself? I think that somewhere I read a quote the other day where they said it was the tyranny of not sleeping at night and that kind of thing. These things that are kind of entrenched into our behaviors. We're praised if we work through the night. We praised if we only get a little bit of sleep every night, and we work. The harder we work, the more we're proving ourselves, and it's so destructive. And we don't do our best work when we're like that. I actually have a little experiment running at the moment. I started also a social change group around textiles, because 10% of our waste in the landfill comes from the textile and clothing industry. And I have a group of volunteers who run the group for me, who help me to look after the group, and they're placed all around the world. And at one stage, I put some guidelines in place for my team members where I said to them, don't come in if you're not in a good mood. Don't come in. Only come in when you're in a great mood and when you're ready to deliver your best. And what it means is that we only have people on shift who are ready to do a great job, who are in a good mood to do it. So the team works very effectively and very efficiently because we work that way and because we put self-care first. So it can be quite scary to let go into that space. But on the other side, there's some amazing rewards.
I find it very interesting that you say that, because earlier on we were chatting about how I participate in this online gaming thing called Cashflow. And it's basically monopoly on steroids, and we get issued a job with a certain amount of money, and it's all virtual jobs, not a real job. And then we work at getting as much money as possible inside that space. And I've been playing this game for quite some time, so it has significantly changed the way that I look at money, the way that I see things, and my business model structure. But yesterday, I had to practice something that I had learned from this group. We had no power yesterday for a large portion of the day. And I had a lot of goals and things that I needed to do. So I worked as much as I could on my cell phone. But by the time it came for the game, I have realized that when we are playing that game, I perform better when I'm in a good mood. So the first thing that I did is the power came on about 2 hours before the game was about to start. And I had already said to the organizers, there's a possibility I might not be there because I sometimes will host a room. And the first thing that I did is I went onto YouTube and I said, best feel good music. I put the music on so that my mood was elevated when I went into the game. And I actually had a very good game because I had managed my mindset. And one of the things that they teach in this particular game is find the things that you know are going to change your mood. Whether it is movement, dancing, whatever it is, but you can't just now go and say, okay, well, I'm going to eat like 4 slabs of chocolate because I get endorphins from it, or have 10 glasses of wine because
But the chocolate works.
but you do things that are going to sustain your energy. And that's something I had to work on quite aggressively, because originally when I started writing, I would write from 3 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the morning, which is quite hard going. So I've got a friend who's an accountant. She did that for quite some time. She worked part-time as an accountant and full-time. So she had her own little business. And eventually her hair started falling out. And I thought to myself, oh, that's not going to be me. So when I wake up in the morning, I do certain things. I have cross-midline exercises. I drink water. I will always have spinach because it's got magnesium and it helps you with your brain. I have eggs because it's got the right kind of fatty acids in it. And I'll have an orange. And the orange and the spinach have got folic in it. And folic is very good for your heart. And also women who are pregnant, it helps to prevent certain kinds of deformities with the children. So because I've got that, I won't have a cup of coffee until I have hydrated my brain. Because I've got that and I play music while I'm writing, it helps to elevate my productivity. And once I got into the cycle, I didn't have those slumps of exhaustion that I had beforehand, because I'm taking care. That what they call it is most people take stimulants, as in coffee or whatever. But if you have an adaptogenic lifestyle, which means that you help your body to adapt to the grueling stuff that you're putting it through, then your performance is always so much better. But you had a couple of health challenges by going for like long hours when you were in the flea market space. Tell us about that.
Oh, it was ridiculous. In my 20s, I was ridiculous. I was quite, I thought I was bomb-proof. So what happened was, I would on a Monday I would go to suppliers and I would buy t-shirts and I would pick up stuff from the CMT companies, the dresses and stuff. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, I would wash and bind the stuff up into little bundles with elastic bands. Then typically the yeah, Tuesday I would bind them up. Wednesday I would dye them. Thursday I would finish dyeing them, and Friday would be wash day. But I would typically on a Thursday night work an all-nighter. Then on Saturday and Sunday I would trade at markets, and on Monday I would begin the cycle again. So I was essentially working a 7-day week, and I was working an all-night shift almost every single, I kid you not, Thursday for years on end, until I eventually did burn out. And it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. I had the role modeling I had from my father was that when he needed money, he would just work hard and he would just work nights. So I understood that that was what it took to get the job done. It didn't. I tried to make the business more efficient. In the end, I realized that what I needed to do was remodel it completely. There was a lot in the original modeling that was flawed. You know, if you're making a custom product and you're the only person who can produce it, and it's finicky, and the perceived value in the market is low value, okay, you're going to work yourself to death. It wasn't a good plan. It wasn't a good plan. I came up with a better one. I came up with a better one.
So how do you teach your students that kind of balance?
Oh, I keep telling them. I've got lots of groups where I lead with self-care first, you know, and also I embody it these days. So I sleep well, I eat well, I don't work nights, I don't get up with an alarm clock. I have a ridiculously comfortable life for an entrepreneur, but it's taken me 4 or 5 iterations of the business model to get it here. You know, and also I'm almost 50. I don't have the same energy I had in my 20s. You know, I think if I had to try working all night and now I'd be you'd have to hospitalize me.
Yeah, that's why wisdom comes with age. But speaking about 50, I was actually saying to my daughter that I am just a year and a few bits of a month shy of going 50. And I'm like, well, I'm so looking forward to the next half a century. So she says, you're not almost half a century, because our kids never really believe how old we are. And I'm like, I'm so excited because, you know, dragon whisperers in my books, they live for hundreds of years. So, you know, why can't I? So I'm only just getting started now.
Oh dear, mommy's buying her own story again.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. And when my course releases, I'm actually going to be focusing on women that have gotten to that life stage of that they don't have to do the heavy duty parenting anymore. Now, unfortunately, if I'd had a crystal ball, I would have said, okay, maybe have those babies a little bit earlier, because I am turning 49 in 2 months' time, and I still have a 6-year-old in the house. I've got an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I had my first child when I was 30. So I'm like, you didn't really think about how that was going to work out. But on average, when women reach our age, they would have, you know, done the bond thing, been it over with the nappies and the primary school and that kind of thing. And then they might get into a place where they're like, okay, well, what happened to me? Where am I? What happened to all of the dreams that I had? And so that kind of space is, I think, the space that I'm going to be playing in when it comes to my training. Is what are you going to be doing? Where's that dream that you had for writing a book? And how are you going to make that happen? Because now it's actually about you. And I always say if you've got kids, one of the best things you can do for them is to reach for your dreams. Because when they come through and they say, Mom, I want to be whatever, whatever, and you haven't had the courage to go for your dreams, how can you honestly tell them shoot for your dreams? Because they haven't seen it modeled. And that's why it's so great to chat to people like you, because you're modeling the things that you want other people to learn. So
I have to say, because a lot of people say to me, how have I had the time to cram in all the things that I've crammed into my adult life? And there I have to say it was a decision to not have children. I bought myself more time with that decision. And I don't get me wrong, I respect people who have children. I think you guys are amazing. You have amazing, incredible courage to bring other complete humans into the world. So it's not a judgment by any means. It was simply a choice that I made for myself. I elected for myself to create more time because I like to explore different things. And I like to be single-mindedly selfish in that pursuit.
it's very interesting that you should say that, because when I mentioned to you that I play the Cashflow game a few times a month, when you pull out your card, they tell you up front, if you have a child, how much that child is going to cost you. And you, in the game, you can have a maximum of 3 children. So after that, they're like, okay, well, it's over. There's no more children for you.
There's no point. You can't afford this.
When, as you start playing the game and a child comes up, if you land on doodad, so I never had a doodad is an unexpected expense. I landed on a card yesterday that said I had to pay for my daughter's wedding, and it was an exorbitant amount of money my salary, and I'm like, yay, I've got no kids. So the facilitator, because we've got a facilitator who runs the game and asks you about questions about your process and what you learned, and she's also got kids. She's got twins. She said to me, "How does that make you feel now that you in reality have children, but you've like responded in this way in terms of the game?" I said, "This game is by far the best contraceptive I've ever come across."
I think we hide from the numbers a lot. I know on a lot of the groups and things that I've got, we talk numbers, and so often when we wade into those weeds, you get negative responses coming back. People are very emotional when you talk about numbers and money. And I think we need to normalize that conversation.
Very true.
Talk about it more.
I think for, our schooling structure, what a lot of people don't realize is our schooling structure, even if you look at the old buildings when we went to school, they were designed like factories. The fact that you have a bell that goes off at lunchtime, that was the Industrial Revolution's structure of running a factory. So they took a factory and they superimposed it into an education system. And our education system is designed to churn out employees. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, because I think that sometimes as an entrepreneur, you do get some entrepreneurs that start out in life and they're like, I am never working for anyone at all. My view is that you should have a job. You should, whether it's a student job or whatever, you need to understand what you are running towards or away from, and if you're going to have staff, what it means to be an employee. So I do like that we've got that understanding of structure and respect for authority and deadlines and that kind of thing. But I think that you have to, as a parent, you've got to put it into perspective for your child. You can say, this is the model of schooling, and you are doing it to get this kind of information out of it. You're not doing it that you're going to become a mold that just goes out of a conveyor belt. There's certain skill structures that you need to learn in this space, but from there, you need to make it happen for yourself. So I only learned that much later on, and then when people say, like, what was the best time of your life? Like, everyone says, oh, school was the best time of my life. I'm like, no, school was not the best time of my life. It was not the worst time either. I didn't have any negative feelings about school at all. I just like, I have to do this. When I do this, it's the next step to my life. And to me, the best time of my life was when I was a student, because I had more freedom, more decisions. There was a bigger correlation between effort to output, because you couldn't, if you fail a language, like if you fail Afrikaans or Zulu, depending on what your second language is, you fail the year. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what if I don't ever want to speak another word of Afrikaans in my life again? What if I don't want to speak Zulu? Why should I be labeled a failure because I didn't get that subject right? There must be a different way of living your life, of saying, these are the things I choose to excel at. And those things, although they have value, that's not my identity.
Mm, mm,
So this
absolutely.
conversation's gone like way off publishing. But I think it's important, because if you are a publisher, or you are publishing a book, if you are an author, it's not a hobby, it's a business. And if you want it to pay you like a business, you need to treat it like a business.
So, can I also add something on that? Because for me in my business, my book was just a small piece. So, my business is not being an author. My business is textile surface design. So the book became a vehicle to do a number of things. When I published the first one, I was retailing craft kits that I was selling through different craft shops around the country. And the book was intended as a manual, a complete manual to teach you how to work with that product. So the two went hand in hand. And it was also a way of giving my brand respectability. So for the first 10 years of my career, I had people telling me that tie-dye was only for hippies, and using that as the basis to disrespect me. And so I then went on a journey to make it respectable, which then took me all the way into the South African fashion industry, all the way to the catwalk, and then into the book publishing realm, just to give this thing that I did a veneer of respectability within the South African setting, where tie-dye has this extreme stigma, negative stigma attached to it.
I love that. I love that, because it's managing your own brand and persona. And I'm very mindful of the fact that even for me, my books, I started out writing, and I'm very happy that I'm on that journey. I love being an author. But it's not just about that. There's so many things that you can add on to that, whether you wanted to be a motivational speaker, or you wanted to start a publishing business to help other authors, or you wanted to go into training. All of these things are interrelated. We don't have to say, I'm this thing and I can't be anything else because of that. So I love your approach, that it is a multifaceted thing, because we are multifaceted people. We're not just one stereotypical, you have to do it this way because that's the way it's always been done. I think I want to ask you, if people want to connect with you, they want to find out more about your courses, and also where to find the book, where would they be able to go to?
So the books you can find through Metz Press. So if you go to the Metz Press website, you will find them there. That's metzpress.co.za, METZPRESS. And then if you want to connect with me, the best way is to find me at Dye & Prince. So you can find me at Dye & Prince on all of the social networks, and also dyeandprince.co.za, and that's DYEANDPRINTS.co.za.
Excellent. And I am going to put it in the description section. So if you are like me and you want to write down everything, and it isn't enough time because you've got two ladies that talk much faster, then have a look at the description at the bottom and take down all of those details there. And if you've got any questions that you want to ask Melanie, also pop it into the comments. I would like to hear from other authors if you've got an idea for a book that either works in the crafting area or is a skill that you want to be able to pass on to other people. Let us know what those ideas are. And for those people who want to have new ideas for the channel, please also comment on that. I love hearing from the viewers on what they want to see and what they want to hear in this show. And remember to subscribe, because if you don't subscribe, you won't know what's happening in the space. Melanie, I'd like to thank you so much for your time. This has been a really engaging conversation. We went off on all different directions, but we're allowed to do that. And I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing about your experiences, and I can't wait to see what happens next in your space.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Kim. I appreciate it very much.
Bye for now.